my creative friends. I'm Sharon and welcome to Love Sew. Today's demonstration is all about what you can make with 5-inch charm squares. We love pre-cuts at Love Sew. They are the perfect way to get a small sampling of a lot of different fabrics without having to buy excess fabric and have a lot of scraps left over. So I want to share with you some projects that you can make to make the best use of your 5-inch squares today. And hopefully we'll do some other size pre-cuts in the future. Okay, so today, get your 5-inch square packs. You're going to need 42 squares. And then you'll also need 6 1.5-inch strips of a neutral fabric. Okay, so what are we going to make? I'm going to show you an easy way to make these cute snowball blocks. Snowball is a super classic traditional quilt block, and it's really easy to make and perfect for charm squares. So with 42 squares, we can make a quilt that is 6 blocks wide by 7 blocks long. So it'll be kind of a nice little baby size quilt. And of course, you can expand that by adding more fabrics, using more than one charm pack to make whatever size you choose. Now, make sure you watch the video all the way through because I'm going to show you my finished quilt at the end. But in the meantime, I'm also going to show you some ideas for making your quilt unique and different ways you can use this block to make different designs. And then you can choose your favorite and see what you want to make with your charm squares. Okay, so visit lovesew.com and pick up your favorite pack of 5-inch squares. For my project, you only need 1 pack, but you can make a bigger one by getting more than 1. Okay, so get your fabrics together, get ready to sew along, and let's have some fun. We have 1.5 by width of fabric strips in our cream colored fabric, and they are still folded so we can cut 2 squares from each strip at a time. And I'm using my Creative Cuts ruler, which is a slotted ruler and allows you to cut multiple pieces at the same time. So my first cut is going to be at the 0 line, or since I'm left-handed, I cut backwards starting at the 6.5-inch line. And that removes the selvage from my strips. And then I cut every 3rd groove, which gives me 1.5-inch intervals. And so as you can see, just making this many cuts, and since my fabric is folded over, I can get a whole bunch of squares cut all at the same time just by lining up my strips and cutting them this way. Okay, so I'll move the ruler and just replace it on the end where I left off and continue to cut every 1.5 inches on the slots of the ruler until I have cut the full length of my strip. Okay, and I'm going to need to do this for 6 strips to get enough squares for 42 snowball blocks. Okay, now for each of the 1.5-inch squares, you are going to use a ruler and a marking pen. I'm using one of the Love Sew marking pens that disappears when I press. So I will mark my fabrics, and then when I press the seams, the markings will disappear. And that's just my personal preference. You can also use a pencil or other marking pen that you have handy. And I'm just doing a mark from one corner to the opposite on the diagonal of each square. And this is going to be the line that I sew to add the triangles to each corner of my charm square. Okay, so once I have marked a bunch of those squares, I can go to my charm squares and start sewing. And what you're going to do is line the corner of one of the 1.5 inch squares with a corner on the charm square so that these 90-degree angles line up. And then sew just to the inside of your marked line. The reason that I say to sew just to the inside of your marked line is that that thread takes up ever so slightly amount of space, and you want to be able to fold this fabric over that sewn seam and have it reach all the way to the corner and fill that space. And if you sew too far out toward the center of the square, then when you go to fold it, it'll come up short and you won't have a full corner. Okay, so sew just to the inside of your marked line. And what I've done is gotten a whole bunch of my squares, and I'll sew one side and then flip it over and sew the other side. So I'll do 2 at a time and then press these and then do the other 2. Of course, that's completely optional. You can do 1 at a time and press, or you can do all 4 and press. Okay, so let's go to the sewing machine and get a few of these sewn and pressed, and we'll see where we are at that point. Okay, here we are, and I have a bunch of the blocks sewn, and I wanted to show you some layout options before we sew them all together into our finished top. This is the really fun part, I think. So what I did, I actually sewed a bunch of the blocks with the 4 triangle corners, just like we talked about and what they will be in the finished quilt. But I also went ahead and left some of them with just 2 opposite corners sewn. And I want to show you some ideas for sewing these blocks together and some different design ideas that you can get with them like this. So you may decide that you like one of these options and want to go with just 2 corners. So let's see some options. First of all, the classic Snowball block. This is the one with all 4 corners. And even with this, you can get a variety of looks in your quilt depending on the colors that you choose for your corner triangles. So I went really simple with this one because I wanted to show you the basics and really have the focus be on these cute prints. But another option would be to make these triangles in different colors. You could use something that complements the prints, or you could reverse it and do solid colors in the squares and then like a really simple print for the triangles instead, or do the whole thing in solids. I also think it would be really cute to do these like opposite ones in different colors, and that way when you go to sew them together, you'll get a pattern in these shapes. Like say these were green and these were white, you'd have kind of a hourglass shape. So you could play around with adding different colors and see what you like. Okay, but you're starting to get an idea of what these look like when you sew them together. And I love just the simplicity of this. And again, with the charm squares, you get a small sampling of a lot of different prints. So this is an ideal pattern for really letting those prints shine and the pretty fabrics. Okay, so this gives us a good example of how they're going to look with all 4 corners. And I'll tell you, it's really stunning when you make a big quilt with these, with a whole bunch of these blocks, because even though they're really simple, you start to get kind of a circular effect, and it's really interesting. And you can get a pretty cool like illusion, because it starts to look round. Okay, now the blocks that just have 2 corners. These you can do a few different ways. I had planned on doing them opposites like this. So let's say, what if we do so that all of the blocks are oriented the same way, with the triangle corners in the top left and the bottom right. Then you get this little shape forming here where they come together. Okay, so that is one option. Another option is to put them so that you form a square with the corner triangles. Now this is going to be similar to this one, where you do get that hourglass shape where the blocks come together. But it also looks a little bit different because you have corners here that don't have the triangles. So here you'll get a little bit different effect. So depending on how you look at it and how you place your colors, you could get sort of an X shape with the prints. If you look at it like that, you could get an O, like a donut kind of shape. So imagine if all of these squares were the same print, you would get kind of that donut shape. Or with, like mine, if you just put them all in random positions, then you get just a cute little baby quilt, or large quilt if you want to make it large, with these kind of little like jewel shapes thrown in there sometimes. Okay, so one more design idea. The other thing that I thought of as I was playing around with these was, what if we just did them in pairs and created kind of little like arrow shapes or half square triangles. So let's see. I was imagining this one but didn't actually lay it out. So we'll see how it looks in real life. So you could do something like this, where 2 of the triangles meet, and like some are pointed down and some are pointed up, which is kind of cute. So you'll notice that you get a row of the triangles pointed downward and a row of the triangles pointed upward. So that's kind of cute too. And all of these are really simple to put together. You just sew the triangles on the corners and then sew each square next to each other in rows and then put them together. So there's nothing fancy about the piecing them together. And you could add borders if you want, but you don't have to. So this is some of the ideas that you could take to put your blocks together. I would be interested to see what you choose as your favorite, so I hope you'll share those with me, and maybe you could tell me your favorite in the comments below this video. And if you plan to make one like the original intended design, or if you're going to play around with one of these or even come up with your own way of setting your snowball blocks. Okay, so hopefully this makes you feel inspired to get out some of your charm squares, or pick up a pack from lovesew.com. We sell a selection of 5-inch charm packs that you could make this quilt, and you can sew along with me. So let's head back to the sewing machine. I'm going to finish adding all of the little triangles to the other sides of all of my squares, and then sew them together and make a finished quilt. Okay, so let's get that far and see how it turns out. I'm back and I have finished our snowball quilt. Are you ready to see? I think it turned out so cute. Let's take a look. So again, this one was made with just one charm pack, so it took 42 squares to make it this size. And you can make it bigger with more than one charm pack, but this is a perfect size for a little wall hanging or crib quilt or baby. And I think it's really adorable. Huge payoff for a simple sewing pattern. So I would love to see what you guys make with this design. I hope you've been sewing along with me, and if not, maybe you've just gotten some ideas for a future project. I think this would be super cute in a holiday theme fabric. You could do something with more contrast with the little squares. Really, with something this simple, the possibilities are endless for making it in your unique style. I just quilted mine with some Aurifil thread, just in straight grid lines along the seams and then across the middle of each square. Super simple, but gives it a great texture, and it's really quick and easy to quilt. Okay, and then the binding is a cute little green stripe that matches. So don't forget, if you need supplies, visit lovesew.com. We have the thread, the fabric, the charm packs, and you are ready to go. Be sure and tell me what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your favorite style. If you decided to choose one of the alternate layouts we talked about, or the colors you chose, let us know. And be sure and join the Love Sew Facebook group so that you can show us your finishes and let us know that you've been joining along. All right, give us a subscribe so that you'll know whenever Love Sew produces a new video, a new tutorial, or has new content. And we love to see you. Until next time, happy sewing.